interested in getting Hillary to run again? Is
let's be honest, nobody cares about what's happening to the Uyghurs, okay? You bring it up because you really care, and I think that's nice that you care. The rest of us don't care. I'm just telling you a very hard...
Wait, you're saying you personally don't care?
I'm telling you a very hard, ugly truth, okay? Of all the things that I care about, yes, it is below my line, okay? Of all the things that I care about, it is below my line.
Disappointing.
Can you talk a little bit about what you thought when you heard these comments? And for our viewers who might not know, what's happening to the Uyghurs?
Absolutely. I mean, first off, these comments were absolutely horrifying. I think what happened was Chamath really said the quiet part out loud. And what I mean by that is he said what no business person, no venture capitalist, no investor should ever be saying. He essentially said when money is on the line, human rights don't matter. And he didn't even just stop there. He went a step further and said, the Uyghurs and what's currently happening there is quote unquote below his line of what he should care about. He's saying that in the face of ongoing genocide and crimes against humanity being perpetrated by the Chinese Communist Party against Uighur Muslims there. He's saying this in the face of over 1 million people being held inside political re-education camps. He's saying this when the Chinese Communist Party has a stated goal of forcibly sterilizing between 80 to 90% of Uyghur women of childbearing age. I would love to know what's above his line. This is among some of the worst human rights violations taking place today. And to have a leading business person dismiss those claims and not just claim that he doesn't care, but that other people don't care was pretty appalling.
I agree. And I immediately actually thought of you when I heard these comments, as well as Ziba Murat, a Uighur Muslim who you actually introduced me to. She's been on before for interviews. Her mom is reportedly detained in China by the Communist Party. Now, he did, issue a tweet apology saying that, he realized, he recognized that he came off as lacking empathy, which, was just a short little blurb on Twitter. He didn't even mention the Uyghurs in his apology, you could call it, I guess. But if you were able to sort of reach out to him, right, and give him a message about what he said in his comments, what would that message be?
Absolutely. Well, I mean, I think my message would be that, of course, the Uyghur people matter. And as you raised, Sam, Ziba is just one example of Uyghur Americans who are currently separated from family members back in China. And it's not just family members of Uyghurs that care. I think ordinary Americans care because they don't like to see history repeating itself. They don't want to have to bear witness to genocide and crimes against humanity. They don't want to see women being raped and men and women and children, families separated from each other, pulled apart limb by the Chinese Communist Party. And this is something that every American can care about and should care about. And what's so exciting is that we actually have opportunities now to hold the Chinese Communist Party accountable. China should never have been selected to host the Olympics that are going to happen in the next couple of weeks. But this is an opportunity where even ordinary Americans can decide, for example, not to watch the games when they're aired by NBC. We can have our own forms of protest, and journalists like yourself can cover stories like Ziba's, stories of the Uyghurs, of Hong Kongers, of Tibetans, of Chinese Christians who are persecuted. And so we have an opportunity now to really up the ante and raise the profile and shine a spotlight on some of China's worst human rights violations, including the ongoing genocide and crimes against humanity occurring against Uyghurs today.
Yes, absolutely. And, you brought up the Olympics there, and with NBC playing ads and promoting the Winter Olympics that are starting, I believe it's February 4th. Is that sort of like a blind spot? Like when money is involved, is there a blind spot to what you talked about, human rights abuses, forced sterilizations, these re-education camps, all that's documented? It's not speculation that this is going on. Like we have witnesses, we have documentation, we have photos, videos. So does that play, obviously into how people are covering it and approaching it?
I mean, I think the International Olympics Committee's decision to select Beijing in the first place just demonstrates how oftentimes, big business and institutions will turn a blind eye to human rights violations. And when they aren't met with accountability measures, when they aren't being actively called out, then it emboldens people like Chamath, who we said making these comments. But I think there are some amazing counterexamples, like the Women's Tennis Association and their response to Peng Shuai. And when she disappeared, they just absolutely called out the Chinese Communist Party. They said, we're willing to lose business, we're willing to lose profit over this because it's important to us when an athlete is affected. And it's important to us when the Chinese Communist Party is doing what they're doing to really harm their own people. And so I think these are excellent opportunities to really raise the profile and also to make sure that the IOC never selects a host like Beijing that does not have a fundamental respect for human rights.